warm welcome to this very special interview on the Moneymile. Joining me today is one of India's most dynamic mutual fund leaders, Swarup Mohanty, who's the CEO at Mirae Asset Investment Managers, one of India's fastest growing mutual fund houses. Thanks very much, Swarup, for joining me here today. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You've been a very keen student of investor behavior. And today, as we go through these difficult times where people have seen sharp cuts in the value of their portfolios, how are you reading investor behavior at this point of time?
Thank you so much, Vivek, for having me on your show. First of all, it's a known fact that 95% of the wealth that is created is due to one's own behavior, while 5% comes from market sort of action. But when we look at the discussions, nearly 95% of the discussions happen on market actions and not on behavior. So that's why I've been a very keen follower of the behavior of investors. And if you look at what is happening around us, yes, there is a lot of fear, and there should be. I mean, look at the unprecedented way the markets have behaved. So, but amidst all that fear, at least on the equity side, and I say that specifically for SIP investors, I am seeing a very good behavior from their side. There is a lot of rational behavior from them. They have held steady in spite of the markets going down almost 30-40%, which is very good to see. This experience for them is very important because if you look at the overall, prospect of an SIP investor, and I always say this, that for an SIP investor, volatility is the best friend. And the more they stay invested in this entire period and start accumulating units at this level, they will start getting a good investment experience when we end this COVID-19 sort of experience. But when you look at the other side of the market, which is the lump sum side of the equity side, maybe they could have done better, but I cannot comment on that. If the allocations are there, they're probably holding steady. The market has been net sales positive, so good to see that behavior. But in the last 2-3 weeks, we've seen some change on the debt side, and look at it from that perspective, that it's the same investor who's behaving very rationally on the equity side, has seen some volatility probably for the first time on the debt side, and there is a distinct flight to safety on that side. And then from what is looking at a little bit of fluctuations on the credit risk fund, there's a clear flight to safety to the gilt fund and the bank and PSU fund. The gilt fund practically being bought on past experience, and the bank and PSU being bought on a complete flight to safety, which I don't think is exactly rational. There should be asset allocation on the debt side, which I hope I can see after this entire episode playing out.
Thanks very much, Swarup, for joining me for this interview, and thank you for sharing some amazing music with everyone during this very difficult period that we've all gone through of the lockdown. Hopefully things will get better soon. Thank you once again for joining me.
No, thank you so much, Vivek, for having me. Music is always a pleasure. It's the therapist that I have.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.